me try this Candyman business. Candyman, 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 Candyman.
Who can make the sun rise?
Oh, that's a lot of candy!
Yeah. Don't eat it all at once. You'll get diabetes. Hello! I am Robert.
And I am Pam.
Today's movie is 1992's Candyman.
The director of Candyman is Bernard Rose. He has 33 directing credits. Okay. And he actually started as a music video director. Interesting. And Bernard Rose actually wrote and directed this film. So that's interesting.
He wrote the screenplay, but it is based on a short story, I believe, written by Clive Barker.
Oh.
British author, fabulous and famous horror author.
Oh.
A lot of his stuff gets made into films, horror films specifically. To synopsize, Candyman is a murderous urban legend character with one hand for a hook, or one hook for a hand, who clearly is based on the Bloody Mary mythos, where you have to say Candyman's name, which by the way is Candyman, into a mirror 5 times in a row, and he will be summoned and most likely kill you.
Yes.
Virginia Madsen, whom I love, she was a huge star in the 80s, but she's still acting. She's got like a lot of projects in development. You'll see more of her, next year or whatever. But she's gorgeous and she's a really good actress. She was big in the 80s, but she plays a folklorist, a researcher. She's I don't know what she is. Is she a grad student?
I don't know if she's a grad student or they're doing some thesis, right?
She's writing some kind of paper.
Big paper on the tale of the Candymans. The research gets out of hand.
Yeah, I think I'm choking on some candy. It's set in a project, a real housing project for low-income people called Cabrini Green in Chicago, right? That's a real place, Cabrini Green, named after Mrs. Cabrini or something. I don't know the history, but this urban legend that she's researching with her friend, it's very specific to that part of Chicago. It's not like a nationwide or a worldwide urban legend. It's very localized. So they have to go and research it, and they find some people that say, oh yeah, there was a murder, and everybody says Candyman did it, and this, that, and the other thing. And I do want to say there's a scene where she figures out that, okay, so the broad was murdered, and the guy came through from the other apartment by pushing out the medicine cabinet.
Yes.
So she's trying to say, how did it really happen? Because there's no such thing as a Candyman, obviously. And that incident, that was a real incident. There was a dude in Chicago that figured out in cheap housing that the wall, they cut a hole out in the wall in the bathrooms. The bathrooms face each other, and it would insert 2 medicine cabinets.
Yes.
So he would break into one apartment, pull out the medicine cabinet, and push out the other medicine cabinet, and then go in and rob and kill and stuff.
Oh my God!
So that was a real thing.
That's more terrifying than the movie.
And they said that's a fabulous story, and they wrote it into the screenplay.
Wow.
Because none of that crap is in Clive Barker's story. Candyman is played by Tony Todd. Tony Todd he's become a horror icon, and probably at the start of it because of this film.
Mm-hmm.
He's got over like 250 credits. He is a big dude. He is 6'5".
Yeah.
I happen to know a stage actor
Mm-hmm.
who was in a play production with Tony.
Ooh.
Relatively recently, and he's not a spring chicken anymore. This movie is 30 years old at this point.
Yeah.
So, but even today, he's a physically imposing dude, and so they had a little scuffle in the play.
Yeah.
My friend and Tony, and they were trying to rehearse it. He said Tony was just like manhandling him like it was nothing. He like picked the guy up and threw him across the room like he was nothing. Tony's a big dude.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's nice when he's not acting, because he could be very intimidating, and that's why he got this part.
Yeah. But he's like intimidating in sort of like a smooth sort of way. Like,
I have a problem. Let me just get this out of the way.
okay.
Why the fuck is he called Candyman?
That is a good question. Yeah, because the story doesn't exactly align with candy. It's not like, oh, I was eating all this candy and this horror. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. That's a really good point. I didn't even question that. Because the actual story, his backstory, is really twisted and has, nothing to do with candy. It has to do with the love affair and...
race, a lot of racial stuff. Yep.
Yes, race and impregnating somebody from another race.
I don't want to talk too much about his backstory, because we find that out briefly, but it's later in the movie. Yeah. But we get an explanation as to why he's specifically haunting or whatever he's doing the Cabrini Green area.
Yes.
And I will say that his historical background, it does involve bees.
Yes. Oh, the bees. Ugh, Stevie.
Now, so consequently, a lot of the scenes after he's summoned, because some shithead summons him, and so that at that point he can appear more frequently in the movie. And there's bees. All I'll say is there's bees in the scenes.
Too many bees. It's gross.
So, what bees? They make honey, right?
They do make honey.
So there's honey involved in the plot. Well, why the hell do they call him Honeyman?
Honeyman, yeah.
There's candy.
Bee-Man, the beekeeper.
Or Bee-Man, sure.
Yeah.
There is candy in the movie. When the researchers get into the lair where they say, oh, this is Candyman's, this is where he hangs out. It's just some crappy beat up apartment in the project, but there's all kinds of graffiti on it.
Yes.
On the walls and stuff, and there's graffiti everywhere. You see the word "sweet" in graffiti, or sweets, and Candyman was here or whatever. You see that as graffiti that the kids have painted, but there ain't no candy except when they get into Candyman's lair or whatever. He doesn't really have a lair, but
no.
There's a bag of like Halloween candy on the ground, and she picks it up. You got to be watching, otherwise you won't notice it. And she opens it. She says, "Ow. Oh, I cut myself. There's a razor blade in this Mounds bar," or whatever.
Yeah.
That's. Candyman obviously didn't leave it there.
Right.
He doesn't use candy as his.
Yeah, it's a really undeveloped sort of part of the plot that does leave you wondering, what? Okay.
So I'm a little disappointed in the antagonist's name, and there is no connection to candy, only honey.
Yeah, I would imagine a Candyman would be some creep who's luring kids into his van with candy. That's a Candyman. He's scary. Watch out for the Candyman.
Yep.
This guy, totally different.
Nope, he appears in your bathroom mirror and then elsewhere after you do that. I do want to say, there's a bosom alert in this movie.
It's an impressive bosom alert.
At 48 minutes in.
Oh my god, your smile says it all.
And then again, I have like a 5-minute rule, but it happens again about 6 minutes later, like 54 minutes. It's Virginia Madsen's bosom.
She is just stunning.
It's fabulous.
Stunning.
It's fabulous, too.
Yeah, I didn't know that she... Because I only know her from nowadays, like, in Sideways and, like, movies
Sideways, very famous movie that she was in, yes.
But I didn't know. I'm like, wow, what a hottie.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I know about that scene where you see the bosom, It's her and like a lady police officer. We'll just say that.
Yes.
And without giving too much away, and so she's like, all right, you got to strip, That was one of her best friends. She said, Virginia said to the director, look, I'll do nudity, but let's just can you hire my friend, whatever her name is, I don't know it.
Yeah.
And I'll just do it in front of her. I mean, she's seen me naked in the locker room anyway. So it was just her and her friend in that scene, and I guess the horny camera crew, I guess, but
probably.
So that was her one of her best. Her best friend is also like an actress,
right?
So
I respect that. That's very respectable. She's like, I'm really hot. This isn't for just anybody's eyes. Good for her.
Until we watch it on film 30 years later,
true,
we can stream
true.
all her boobs in every room in my house.
Yeah. I'm sure now she looks back, and if she watches it, she's probably like, damn, I'm hot.
I mean, this helped, I mean, she was a well-established actress in the 80s, but, this was a big movie. This movie was big when it came out. Tony Todd, or the Candyman, has been described by critics and everybody else as the Black Freddy Krueger. So black people now have their own slasher, which I guess is a mark of equality in today's culture.
I don't know. I think that's a stretch. I mean, because he doesn't appear in people's dreams.
No, I don't think literally like Freddy
okay.
Krueger. But let's see. Let's look at all the slashers up until now. We got Michael Myers from Halloween.
Yeah.
We got the Friday the 13th. We've got Freddy and the Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know who else we have, but none of them are black.
Yeah, it's starting all the way back with Psycho. Yeah.
None of them are black.
Yeah.
That's because the black people are usually the sensible ones, and they get out of town when the slasher shows up. But so Tony Todd is certainly the first popular black
very cool.
slasher type monster.
Oh yeah, because I would say the first. You go to Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's one of the main characters, but not the slasher. But one of the main characters was
of color.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He did a good job.
No, I think that the black population wanted their own serial killer slasher.
Good.
And you got them in Candyman. Candyman, there's 4, which is not like a lot. And Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th have way more movies than 4. But there's 4 movies in the franchise.
Okay.
The first 3 are, I guess that this one and then the 2, there's kind of 2 sequels, but I know I saw part 2. Part 2 also has, I think, a lot of flashbacks to the origin story of Candyman.
Oh, what, Candyman, the second one?
The second movie
actually
goes more in depth into his history and origins.
Okay.
And then the 4th movie just came out, and it's called the same exact name. It's not Candyman 4, it's called Candyman. It's a reboot.
Oh.
And I haven't seen it, and I've heard it's not very good.
Yeah, I don't know why you want to reboot something that's already. I mean, it's good as is. Like when they redid Psycho, that was a joke. So yeah, just leave it if it's good as is.
Reboot the bad movies. Don't reboot the movies that everybody likes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I say. Listen to Robert, Hollywood. Stop rebooting good movies. Reboot the crap ones. I want to talk about the bees. We mentioned there's some bees in the film.
A lot of bees.
I don't know how much of this I believe, but believe. Virginia Madsen said, or is reported to be, allergic to bee venom.
Okay.
That's not a good thing if they
not.
want you to act with bees in the room, right? So those bees were not fake, apparently. Those bees were real.
Oh, there were so many.
Like, especially on Tony. Like, Tony's got bees all over.
Coming out of his mouth.
I think he got bees in his butt, too. I don't even know. There's bees all over the place. So, I hear 2 stories.
Okay.
One is that these bees were specially bred for this movie, and they're very young. They're only 10 to 12 hours old after hatching. Why? Because they look like mature bees, but they haven't developed the venom in their stinger yet.
Wow.
So our actors won't get stung by these very young bees. There's one massive scene that has a lot of bees in it. There's a couple bees in some other scenes, but there's one really long scene. I'm telling you, that scene took 6 friggin' days to shoot probably. That big, heavy on the bees scene. Well, once you go beyond 12 hours, they're no longer 12 hours old. So I think that story is, quite frankly, bullshit.
I would agree with that.
And I have supporting evidence
Okay.
that that's the case, because Tony said, yeah, I'll work with bees, sure. You gotta give me $1,000 for every bee sting I get.
Whoa, okay.
And they said, okay, we have professional bee wranglers. And,
bee wranglers.
And all this nonsense about 12 hours old and they can't sting and all that crap. He got stung 26 times and made an extra $26,000.
Oh, man.
That's what he says. That's what Tony himself, the man, says.
I hope so.
So this whole, these bees are too young, they won't sting, I think it's BS. Virginia did start out letting bees crawl on her and stuff, and then they haze them and they knock them out, and then they have a special bee vacuum to suck up the bees without killing the bees. And then eventually she said, I don't think she got stung, but eventually she said, you know what, could you just use a body double? Because I'm highly allergic to bee stings, so let's not go there. Which is smart.
Very smart.
That's why she's still making movies today.
She's so smart. We love her.
Yes. Rate this film. We have 2 up right now.
I would give it 2.5 pumpkins.
You wouldn't even go to 3? She's wrong. Even if she didn't like it, you gotta give it a solid 3 or go higher, because it is an important movie.
It is important, and that's why I gave it 2. Maybe changing the casting up a little bit. Alright, I guess you can pressure me into 3 because I don't want the Candyman fanatics to come and appear.
Yeah, they'll climb out of your mirror. They'll push your mirror in.
Alright, so I'll give it 3. I'll give it 3.
She lives in Cabrini Green, folks.
Ah!